Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Football Frenzy. I'm Zoe Alter here with Alex Watts. We'll be talking a little bit about the Week 2 NFL season just concluded, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with news, as we always do. I think our main focus this week has got to be injury, because what is going on in this league? It's insane.
It's crazy. So many players got hurt. Just for a few, Nick Bosa tore his ACL. Jimmy Garoppolo is out for a few weeks. I think Mostert's out for a few weeks. Courtland Sutton and Drew Lock are two big players on the Broncos, got hurt. They're both out for Courtland Sutton's out for the season. Drew Lock just has a shoulder injury. And then I think the biggest to talk about is Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. Saquon Barkley tore his ACL and ending his season. And Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that was a pretty common theme we saw this week. The ACLs were a really big deal. Saquon, especially when he went down, that was pretty much the one thing keeping the Giants alive at the moment. And that was definitely a heartbreaker. I know we've all been focused on the Jets and how bad they are, which we'll talk about later. But you turn to the other New York team and you see Saquon go down, and the Giants, any chance they had of a decent season, basically crumbles down.
Yeah, it's a disaster. And then Christian McCaffrey getting hurt is horrible. I think they're both horrible for fantasy owners, especially.
So bad.
And yeah, it's so bad.
It depends who you are, though, because if you had an early pick, it's bad for you. But if you're the kind of person who plays the waiver wire, then, this might be the best part of your season. But we'll get into that after with our fantasy thing. I just wanted to talk a little about the injuries in general. I think, personally, I have a theory that I know a lot of other people have too. I think that it had to do with the preseason. And I know everyone, myself included, has argued, get rid of the preseason, shorten it, add more games during the regular season. The preseason's useless. But as we've seen, these players didn't get a preseason this year. They got a couple contact practices, but that was about it because of Corona. And we're really seeing the effects. So many injuries. You listed some, just to add a couple more, like Anthony Barr, Byron Jones, Malik Hooker, Tavon Young, Devontae Adams, I think you said. It's just so many injuries from all over the league. And I know you and I were talking a little bit before about, you said something about the turf at MetLife.
Oh, yeah. A bunch of players on the 49ers were all tweeting about how awful the artificial turf at MetLife Stadium was, and that they're all demanding that the NFL to address it and fix it. And I think that might have been a big reason, because 4 of the biggest players on the 49ers got hurt on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and then also Chris Hogan and Brashad Perryman went down.
Yeah, so they both had ankle injuries, it wasn't like none of those injuries were all upper body. It was all lower body injuries. So it had to do with the turf, probably.
So, and the turf, and just also the fact that these guys, if you go so many months without hitting other guys in the legs, you get eventually you get sore and everything, but your body almost gets used to it in a way. I don't know how else to describe it. But when you go from sitting on your couch, and yeah, the guys were training, but if you don't have someone tackling you and coming at your legs and you're not used to that and you just jump right back into that, obviously your body's not going to be able to take it. Even a guy like Saquon, who you've seen his legs, they're so built, they're so worked up, but it's just his agility. Obviously ACLs happen every season. They happen to a lot of players, but the majority of injuries that we've seen in the past 2 weeks, which is you and I before this were just scrolling through the injury list, and it was insane how many guys were on it.
Yeah.
But also
it's crazy.
Almost entirely the whole list was lower body injuries. And I think that tells you something as well. Because these guys were in the weight room, but they weren't able to be out on the field.
Yeah, I don't think Saquon's was, because it was a contact injury. There's a big difference between a contact injury. A non-contact injury is so much worse. I remember last year on the Ravens, Tony Jefferson had a non-contact ACL MCL tear, and he's still a free agent. So at least Saquon Barkley,
And even the contact, we were saying, that's what we're talking about. If it's non-contact, that happens. There's nothing you can do to prepare for a non-contact injury, And that also has to do with the turf. You could tweak your ankle a weird way or something like that. But when it's contact, obviously sometimes that can force an injury. But oftentimes these football players, their bodies will resist the injury just because of how built they are, and their bodies are meant to take it in a way. That's what they're prepared to do. That's what the trainers do for them. And they do everything they can to avoid that injury. So if you see a guy like Saquon go down because he got hit in the knee, he's a running back, That's something you don't see very often. You see a non-contact injury from running backs all the time. That doesn't surprise me. But the fact that he went down because of contact, that's kind of what freaked me out. So I don't know how much brighter it is, but let's talk about some of the games from this week. We've talked about injuries already. We mentioned the Jets. Let's just go into what's happening with them. I know I've seen everything all over social media. What is going on with the Jets?
They're just an awful team. They have an awful team with a quarterback who's being held hostage by Adam Gase. You saw that with his quarterbacks in Tennessee. Well, the quarterback who's in Tennessee right now at Ryan Tannehill. And now look at him. He's so good. But he was in the Dolphins with Adam Gase. Adam Gase ruins all of his quarterbacks. I think it's just Adam Gase needs to be fired. Sam Darnold didn't have a bad rookie season. He had a pretty good rookie season. And when Adam Gase came in,
Jets, for being on the Jets, he actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and which is Adam Gase ruins every single offense that he manages, every single team that he manages. I think it's just time for him to get out of the league, maybe become like offensive coordinator in college or something like that.
In college, maybe go to a high school. I mean, even if you look back at his time in Miami, who did he have? He had Devontae Parker, and he had Jarvis Landry. He had two of those guys, and he had Tannehill, and he had a defense that was ridiculous, and he got nothing done there. That was Cameron Wake at his full prime when he was on that D-line, and he was not able to put anything together.
Time for him to go. He's 100% on the hot seat. Every single team that he goes to, he's on the hot seat.
Yeah, and I know Jets fans were really happy when they signed him, but now this week especially, I've seen petitions going around sign this to get Adam Gase fired, and I think it's so funny because as a Lions fan, I totally get resenting your head coach for everything, and obviously you can't blame all your issues on them. I've learned that, but I fully agree with the Jets fans, and I understand where they're coming from. But just talking about that game a little bit too, I know we talked about the injury situation there, but the 49ers really made the most of it. Jordan Reed, I think, is a guy that we have to talk about for a second. He's been out of football for, over 600 days because of injuries. He comes back, scores 2 monster touchdowns in the absence of George Kittle, which was going to be a huge issue going into this for the 49ers. And the fact that they were able to fill George Kittle's position, not completely, but 2 touchdowns in the first half. Jordan Reed came in, got the job done after being out of football for a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, I think it's just not having depth at the position. You need to have multiple tight ends to be productive, and he really shined in the moment that he was given to make plays and catch balls and score touchdowns.
And then also just going back, just recapping the game a tiny little bit. I know we talked about the Jets issues and everything, but the 49ers came out really well, but even they had some struggles. I mean, Garoppolo wasn't playing his best. I know he went down with an injury, but he threw an interception. I think the first play of the game, Raheem Mostert gets the ball, runs for 80 yards and a touchdown, right? I think that's what set the tone because it wasn't even like the 49ers played so insane. If you look at the game, sure, because it was versus the Jets, they were able to light them up, and Jordan Reed had a good game, but that was blown coverages. If Jamal Adams was still there, I don't think maybe Jordan Reed scores 1 touchdown, but it's not as easy as getting those 2 touchdowns and waltzing into the end zone.
Mm-hmm. I think that the 49ers have the same case that the Rams did when they came off the Super Bowl loss. They lost a few players. They're not as confident because they lost the Super Bowl. I think this comes with every single Super Bowl losing team because, you saw with the Falcons. Oh God, the Falcons. So. Oh my God, I can't even get into that. But they lost their all their momentum. The Rams lost their momentum, and now the 49ers are losing their momentum. Not just and to add, all their good players are hurt. So now they're gonna be a 8-8 team, maybe make the wild card, get eliminated in the first round.
Yeah. So that was a whole one. I think we can leave that in the dust a little bit. Jets fans, I truly wish you the best for this. I don't know what's going down, but, you'll be in my head. I'll hope for you guys. I wanted to recap one more game that surprised me a little bit, the Raiders-Saints game. So I know the Saints were down guys and everything. I know Michael Thomas wasn't in there, and Alvin Kamara came in questionable. But I looked at this score, and I was out all day, so I came back and saw it. And I was flabbergasted when I saw that the Raiders took down the Saints.
Yeah, Well, I think there were two things behind it. Number one was Derek Carr, who had a very good game. He was accurate. He threw touchdowns. He didn't throw any picks. And then I think it was also because it was their first time in Las Vegas. Everyone was excited to be in their new stadium, and I think they just had momentum, a lot of momentum, especially that last drive at the second half. I think the last two drives they had a a touchdown, a good defensive stop, and then a field goal, which really set like 17 at the half. And I think it really just set the tone for the rest of the game.
I agree, but if you're saying it set the tone for the rest of the game, look at the start of the game. The Saints came out really, really strong in the start of the game, worked through Kamara, and you mentioned Carr's game on offense for the Raiders. How about Josh Jacobs? In my opinion, he carried this game for them. I think Carr without Josh Jacobs in that running game isn't much. And sure, maybe he hits a receiver every once in a while, but if Josh Jacobs isn't there, converting third downs and turning like a 2 yard gain into a 6 or 7 yard gain, I don't think the Raiders do even half as well as they did. Then they just have a defense without Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I also think it was just the team effort as a whole, and especially Darren Waller, who had a great game. He's a very good tight end. Used to be a receiver actually on the Ravens, which, you know, kind of upset that we don't have him anymore, but whatever. But I think that he had a really good game. He really blocked for Josh Jacobs. He had 103 yards, I think, and a touchdown. So I think he just had a really good game.
And then I was just confused how the Saints blew it because I saw some of the first half and they looked so strong. Kamara, when Kamara gets into the swing of things and he looks unstoppable, he's insane. He just bounces off tacklers, gets taken down, pops right back up as if someone like barely pushed him when someone like smacked him down. I was impressed by his agility. I was impressed by his skill, and I was impressed by his tackle breaking ability. And I think if they had continued to work through him, I think that I'm not really sure what the issue is. I couldn't diagnose for the Saints. I told you before we started this, I was literally watching highlights from the game trying to figure out what went wrong. And it wasn't even the absence of Michael Thomas because Drew Brees was still hitting targets left and right. It was just the Raiders defense somehow managed to come in, even though they gave up a lot of points to the Saints. I'm not sure what changed, but there was some sort of energy change that occurred around halftime, the start of the third quarter, that just set the tone for the rest of the game. I couldn't figure it out. Could you?
I think they were just like rejuvenated in a new stadium, not playing in the horrible black hole that is the Oakland Athletic Stadium, and I think that they're just happy to be in Las Vegas,
But
and
does the
I
stadium
think that's
even
what
matter if they
really
don't have fans? I get that it matters because they go from being like from Oakland to like Los Angeles to what they're Vegas
Las
now?
Vegas.
They're Vegas, right? Yeah. Los confuses me. But like they're Vegas now. But I get that you go to like Vegas and you get all these fans, but you don't get the fans at the game. You don't get the same energy that you did. I bet it even seemed more real when you played in Oakland. So I don't know what difference the stadium makes. Maybe the guys are excited to be like, oh, it's so fun, it's a new place. But like I don't think it's the energy of the stadium that propelled them to the win, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to next week because we talked a lot about injuries and the Jets and everything.
Actually, speaking of injuries,
Yeah.
I just learned that McCaffrey was put on IR.
McCaffrey IR this year is a little different though. I
Yeah.
believe it's 3 weeks.
3
Is that
weeks.
what it is?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
So in the past, you can bring a guy back after 6 or 7, and that was always a big deal. Like, do you put him on for the whole season or do you fill that one slot where you can bring him back? And this year, just because of Corona and everything, I think it's going to be really interesting to see who comes back. We were saying the Giants just put Sterling Shepard on IR, and he'll be back before we know it. So it's just weird. It's a weird season trying to figure everything out. But let's talk about the games coming up. So I know your team, the Ravens. I got to say, the Ravens-Chiefs game is going to be the best of the week. I don't think you could find any person who could disagree with that argument. You could go around and ask 100 people on the street, and they'd all say yes, because there's no way that someone wouldn't enjoy watching Patrick Mahomes and Lamar go up against each other.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to be the best game of the season. Like, it's two of the best teams in the AFC, in the whole entire NFL, arguably, and I think it's going to be a bloodbath on the offensive side and the defensive side. I think they're just going to kick the crap out of each other until one of them taps out.
I think personally it's going to be offensive. Remember what last year when they played and put up like 50 points each or whatever? I know that the Ravens defense, especially, I have my fantasy team. I rave about them 24/7 to you, who loves to hear good things about the Ravens. But I don't know how much a defense can do when you're playing Patrick Mahomes, and I don't know how much the Chiefs defense can do when you're playing the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. I think it's going to be fully offensive. I think defense isn't going to have that much of an effect on it because I just don't see it being a defensive battle in any sense.
Well, I think honestly, I think it might be because they both have very good defensive lines. Um, I wouldn't say that the Chiefs have that great of a secondary, but the Ravens have two All-Pro cornerbacks, even though they just lost one of their cornerbacks to IR. But
More
they
injuries.
have, yeah, 100%. But I think which sucks because they have the one guy who kind of matches speed with Tyreek Hill. Uh, and I think that it's just going to be a really good game overall. Like the secondaries are going to show out, and special teams are going to show out. They have probably two of the best kickers in the whole entire league. I think they're just so evenly matched. Like I have no idea where it's going to go.
I think that's definitely going to be the game of the week. But if I had to pick another game that I would tune in for, would be the Sunday night game. So the one we just talked about was the Monday night, but the Sunday night game is the Packers Saints. And I think this is also going to be a fun one just because I know the Saints are coming off a loss. We just talked about this, but there's a good chance they're getting Michael Thomas back this week. If not this week, they'll get him back next week. And they still managed to do their thing. I think Kamara could fully tear up the Packers. But then again, I also feel like Aaron Jones could tear up the Saints. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see these two offenses go to work. I think, again, this one's going to be more on the offensive side. I think it's going to be a battle of the veterans, Rodgers versus Breeze. And I think you're just going to see what these two head coaches can pull out and what they can get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And especially with Aaron Rodgers having a crazy beginning to the season. He's playing so well. I think it just depends if the two star receivers play, who wins. Like, because Devontae Adams is hurt,
I
and
don't think Devontae Adams is playing. I think Michael Thomas has a better chance of playing than Devontae Adams does.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like Devontae Adams is always hurt. What was it, like his freaking toe last year? Like now it's his
Yeah.
hamstring. Even if he comes back, he'll play 2 snaps, get hurt, and leave again. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't even think Devontae Adams is the big guy to worry about. I think Aaron Rodgers has found himself other targets. He's established new guys. And almost like Devontae Adams doesn't even matter. The Packers could still be good without him.
Yeah, I mean, but like if you look at the difference between the depth charts, like the Saints have a much deeper team at receiver. Like they have Emmanuel Sanders now. They have that rookie who played
1,000?
really well. Well, they have that rookie that played really well last night. They have a couple good tight ends. So personally, I think that the Saints could come out on top.
I think that one too. I think they're going to be out for blood after losing to the Raiders. I think that's not going to sit well on their shoulders. And they're going to come out, Drew Brees is going to come out looking for something. So I think that's also going to be a really good one to tune into. The Packers also just played the Lions. Believe me, I sat through that whole – I can't even describe that game. It was so bad. But the Packers definitely, after playing that, the Saints are a full step and a half up from whatever that was. So they're going to be met with a little bit of a surprise when they play the Saints.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about, we love to do this every week, our fantasy thing. Starting off, I know we talked a lot about injuries. That's the main basis of where our fantasy insight's going to come from because guys you can pick, you're going to work the waiver wire. That's how you win. That's how you do it. So my guy that I'm going with this week, if you haven't picked him up yet, Devonta Freeman. I remember a couple years ago, he was a middle of the season waiver wire pickup when he was still in the Falcons. He ended up being one of the top 5 running backs that year. With Saquon going down with an injury, the Giants released a statement yesterday saying they were signing Freeman. I think they're going through with it today after he gets COVID tested and runs a couple physicals and things. But I don't know if he'll play this week, but he's definitely going to get incorporated into that scheme. And who's going to match him? What, Wayne Gallman? Like, no one runs like Devonta Freeman. He's going to get a chance to redeem himself. You know he wants it. I think maybe his ceiling is only so high, but the only reason of that is because of the Giants' offensive line. But I think Devonta Freeman can get the job done, especially if they rely so much on Saquon, and you've seen what Saquon can do there, even with a sucky offensive line. So I think Devonta can do just the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's in for a pretty big season. Like last year, he wasn't even that terrible. I think he had 1,200 yards from scrimmage. like 700 rushing, like 300 or 400
And he was on the
receiving.
Falcons. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the Falcons. And I guess we could see what he does in a run-heavy offense because the Falcons aren't too run-heavy. They weren't too run-heavy last year. They're not run-heavy now because they have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. And I think that he's going to really have a good year. And then he's also a really good pickup in fantasy. And maybe this will prove that he's a starting caliber running back and he'll end up getting a big contract next year.
I know there's been doubts. If there's a time for it to make it happen, it's this. This is his second shot. If he can do it, he's got to do it now. And the other one that you were talking about, your pick for this week, we were talking about A.J. Brown, who I have on, two of my fantasy teams that has decimated me because he's been out. A really good pickup that we were saying that he's been snatched off waiver wires a lot, but if he somehow hasn't in your league, go after him. Corey Davis scored a touchdown last week, scored a touchdown the week before. As long as A.J. Brown remains out, you need Corey Davis on your bench. He's borderline starter and a really good stash if A.J. Brown continues to be inactive.
Yeah, I think he was also a top 5 pick in 2015. He was a really good player, and I think now that has a really good quarterback, and now he's the first string wide receiver, I think that he's going to end up doing really good.
He gets all the targets. I think if you don't have him somehow and he's miraculously still around your league, pick him up right now. Pause this, go pick him up and come back. So let's go to the last thing, our favorite thing, even more than fantasy, our red zone questions. So just to recap last week, and then we'll get into this week. Last week, the first question that we asked was, who will throw more touchdowns, Joe Burrow or Baker Mayfield? And you went with Joe Burrow, but me, of course, believing that Joe Burrow couldn't do it, I was like, I'm going to go with Baker. You got that one. You got that one right. Joe Burrow threw 3 touchdowns. Baker only threw 2. I just want to say, the Bengals doing well. I don't think I can process it yet. So if I had to pick again, I'd still say Baker Mayfield, but whatever. Let's go to the next one. You're winning 1-0 right now. We said who will rush for more yards? Cam Newton or Russell Wilson? I said Cam Newton. You said Russell Wilson. This one was close. Neither one of them rushed for too many. Cam Newton rushed for 47, and Russell Wilson rushed for 39. So I won that one, tied even.
Honestly, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Cam Newton's been going off. I can't.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even process it. I mean, the Patriots lost, and he still got, 40 fantasy points?
I don't want to see the Patriots do well again.
It's fine. They lost. Cam Newton can do whatever the hell he wants. If they're not winning, it doesn't matter. And then the last one was Saquon. We said over under 75 yards. He had a good start to the game, but then, of course, the ACL. And we both said over because we thought he was going to come back. And I think if he doesn't get hurt, he gets it. But we both got that one wrong. So tied 1-1 going into week 2. Not so bad. Let's take a look at this week's. So we had the first one was who will throw more touchdowns? Game of the week, Lamar or Mahomes?
I'm going to hate it, but I think Mahomes because, he can always just rely on Tyreek Hill to run the streak and just catch touchdowns. I think usually he's a big guy to have touchdowns, especially against the Ravens. I think he threw for 3 and 4 the last time he played the Ravens. So I think it's going to be Mahomes.
I get that, and part of me wants to say Mahomes because of Sammy Watkins and everything going on there, but I think I have to go with Lamar just because of the fact, one, I can't agree with you. My brain won't let me physically do it. And second of all, I just think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I hope I said that right. I'm not used to his name yet, rookie stuff, But he's so dominant running that I think he's going to take away some of the scoring opportunities for Mahomes because he's going to rush into the end zone a couple times. And maybe he'll get a dish out and he'll go into the end zone, which will count as a pass. But I think the Ravens, I don't know what's going on with their running situation right now. There's a whole committee going on, but there's not one guy who's really set. Mark Ingram used to be that guy, and that's kind of fallen apart a little bit. So I think that one's more up in the air. And for that reason, I'm going to go Lamar just because I think he's going to take more advantage of that and Mark Andrews, but we'll see what happens. Next one, you were talking about your defenses, raving about these ones. Who do you think is going to have more turnovers, the Bills or the Rams defense?
Well, the Bills have always been known for causing turnovers, but I think this year they're more known for getting sacks, getting after the quarterback, and I think the Rams will. I think that Jalen Ramsey will get himself a pick, maybe a couple if he's lucky, and that's just a lockdown defense. They're really having a jump back from last year, which was pretty awful. And I'd say they're like a top 5 team right now. Just in my humble opinion, they're a top
Very
5 team.
humble. Very humble.
Undefeated, stout defense, and I think they're gonna have more turnovers.
All right. I'm going to go Bills just because I don't know if you saw, but some of the highlights from last week, Josh Allen literally trucked Kyle Van Noy into the ground. Kyle Van Noy used to be a Lion. I did not like him when he went to New England and had success. I think he's so overrated, and I'm not even joking. I think in the past maybe 72 hours I've watched that video over 300 times. So, lots of views going up for that one. But I got to go Bills defense just because I think Josh Allen has been so good with that. He's gotten a lot better with his ball security. And I think the Bills defense, especially in big games, makes big plays. And when their defense has to step up, they do. So I think you look for the Bills defense to do that. Mm-hmm. And then last one to wrap it all up, Kyler versus the Lions. I know I've discreetly mentioned the Lions a couple times, but if you've seen anything of the Lions, their run defense is a mess. And so the question is, will Kyler run for 2 or more touchdowns versus the Lions? I'm just going to start it off with a huge yes. I don't even think it's like a question. I think Kyler is such a running quarterback. The past 2 weeks, he's run all over everyone he's faced. And he plays the Lions this week where who are you going to put on him? Like Jared Davis? I love Jared Davis with my whole heart. I love the guy. I think he's good in pass coverage, but he's not fast enough to cover. He's not fast enough to be a spy, especially not a spy on Kyler Murray.
Never heard of him.
You've ever heard of Jared Davis?
No. Well, I'm saying under because I think he's going to take off in passing. I think that he's really going to try to find DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk and and Larry Fitzgerald and all of his other options. And I think he's going to become less conservative with the passing, and he's going to start chucking the ball down the field.
I think he'll start that way, and then he'll realize that what against any other team will be a 2-yard rush will turn into a 45-yard rush. And I think he'll start running a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. The Lions don't blitz. They don't know how. But that wraps it up for us today. We'll be back next week, next Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed. This has been Football Frenzy. I'm Zoe Alter here with Alex Watts saying so long.